which had been the nominated supplier, I think, was to have been received by the 15th of April, according to you. Is that right?
Well, not only according to me, according to the documents, not my documents that I've submitted.
So it's right, as you understand it, and as you say from the documents, the two competitive bids were to be filed by the 15th of April. And by whom were they to be filed?
Well, I think it's fair to say it's a two-part process. That the interested bidders, or the two bidders, would have to file to the GFC, who are administering this, and then they would submit the bids to the JPT.
And what you know is that you were required to file with GFC by the 15th of April. Is that right?
I know a bit more than that. I mean, at that stage I knew that, but now I know far more of the process now.
I'm just asking you to confirm that you were required to file your bid with GFC on the 15th of April, yes or no?
No, that's not what you asked me. You asked me what I know, and that's what I answered.
Dr. Young, I'm sure we will both survive this cross-examination, which will shortly end.
I'm very pleased to hear that I'll survive.
But it will be much easier if you don't spar with me, but you try and assist.
Sorry, I'm not sparring with you. I listened to your questions carefully, and I answered that question. Possibly you think that there are two parts to the question. One is what I know, and I answered that. The other one, I think I'd already answered, is regarding the submission, to who and by when, and I answered them both.
Now the next question is, did you know then the date on which GFC had to file both bids with the Navy?
Working from memory, I cannot say that I knew when. I can go to the documents and see there, but as I said, I was overseas. I just knew what time we had to submit our bid. Well, that's what I can definitely remember. There might have been more, but at least I knew that.
Do you know now when GFC was required to file the two bids?
Yes, again, I can't remember the exactitude, but it was, what I can remember, it was something like 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock on our bids had to be at 5 o'clock on the 15th, and the GFC had to file our two bids the next morning, as far as I can remember.
Let's now look at the documentation. Would you go to your RMY 90, which is your file? Whose file 5? Your file 5, and we're just looking for the page number. It's page number 1603. Do you have it, Dr. Young?
I have an easier to read for me version in front of me on my computer, and it's a Blom and Voss telefax dated the 13th of April.
That's correct. And you'll see there the request, please submit your quote to us by not later than Thursday, the 15th of April, 1999 at 1700 hours.
That's correct, yes.
I want to show you documentary confirmation for your memory that the GFC five.
Advocate Cooper, where should this document come in?
We suggest at the end of file 5, cross-examination file. And you'll see, Dr. Young, that from paragraph 2C of this letter from a letter to the GFC from then Captain Kammerman, there is the requirement that the closing date to be Friday the 16th at 900 hours.
Yes, I think that's what I said.
And as I understand the position, the bids were indeed filed with the department within that time limit. Is that your understanding as well?
It's certainly nothing to the contrary has ever crossed my mind, so I would agree with that.
Is it correct that both C² I² and ADS had been asked to eliminate certain items from the SMS, about which they were both bidding, in order to reduce the price?
Well, clearly from this document, underneath 2C is 2G, and it says SMS to exclude the VSS portion. Of course, we hadn't been involved in the SMS before, so we worked the point of departure, the baseline for our offer was the statement of work, which came with the request for offer. That's what I can remember.
You're referring, as you say, to paragraph 2G of this letter, which reads the SMS is to exclude the VSS portion, and I'm understanding you to say that that wasn't a problem for you because it had never been included in your bid. Is that right?
Well, a little bit differently. We'd never had a bid before, so it couldn't. It's tautologist that it couldn't have been an included bid because we didn't have a bid.
Whereas ADS had a bid.
That's correct, yes.
Now, what Admiral Kummerman has testified to is that when the ADS bid was received, it had not eliminated the VSS portion. Are you in a position to comment on that?
Yes, that's not true.
Why do you say it's not true?
Because it did exclude the VSS portion.
Can you show us anything that supports that?
I think so, but it might take me a couple of seconds or minutes to find the relevant stuff.
I think you should, please.
Yes, I have something in front of me. Let me just try and... I think, well, certainly this is a discovered document, and as far as I know, it was a document that included the bundles, but it takes me a little bit of time to check on all the correct indexing and reference numbers that you people have.
Yes, please take your time. We want to get to the document you're looking to.
Well, while I take my time to try and save time, it's Pierre Morneau of ADS's response dated the 16th of, if I remember, it's dated the 16th of April.
Are you referring to RMY 89?
That's correct, yes.
Chairman, is file 5 of Dr. Young's bundling and is to be found at page 1597. And now you are going to point to this document to demonstrate that Admiral Kummerman had told a lie. Do that?
You're wrong. I don't think that was the question at all. I think the question was whether or not ADS removed the VSS or not. That was the question.
You're not suggesting that Admiral Kummerman has lied in any way in this regard?
Well, that wasn't the question, and I don't think that's certainly not something that your previous questions have prepared my mind for. But I can't think right now of where he has lied.
Good. Now, in page 1597, RMY 89, what do you want to draw the attention of the Commission to?
Well, my understanding of the question is that the instruction was to remove the VSS, and you asked me whether or not that had been done, and I said no, it hadn't been done. Sorry, yes, it had been done.
Cyril, Advocate Cooper, can you repeat the question again? And let's get a witness to answer the question, please.
I would like you to point at page 1597 to whatever it was that you were relying on in your earlier evidence when you said, yes, there's a document, I must find it. Now we've found it. Just point out in the document what you want to refer to.
Yeah, well, there was a specific reason for that, and that is, as the point 1 says, in removing the VSS from the SMS as per the RFP. That's what I wanted, because it was done.
And of course, the sentence goes on to say, we neglected to omit the VSS ILS costs. See that?
I do indeed. I would have come to that, but the point is that the VSS was excluded.
And are you prepared to accept as true that in the quote there had been a failure to omit the VSS ILS costs when they should have been omitted?
I won't just accept that, because that's an easy thing to do post facto, to use that as a reason to bring one's costs down. I've got no visibility as to these ILS costs at all. All I can see is what is written in these letters, but certainly that is a critical omission in a competitive bidding situation.
Are you suggesting to the Commission that a letter written by ADS dated the 16th April and dealing with a omission to have removed something from the bid price is not a genuine letter, that page 1597 RM80 or RMY 89 is not genuine?
I'm certainly not suggesting that the letter is not genuine. What I am suggesting is that it is an irregular and an unfair use some means to bring down their price. That's what I'm suggesting.
I'm not at the moment asking you whether the procedure was regular or irregular. I'm just trying to get to the facts of the matter. And it appears, and I'm putting it to you as a fact of the matter, that on the 16th of April, ADS wrote to say that they had neglected to omit the VSS ILS costs. And I'm asking you whether you accept that or whether you don't accept it.
I do accept it, but it's important that this was long before the closing date of time of 9 o'clock. This letter was written at 3 minutes, or fax was sent at 3 minutes past 4 in the afternoon.
Again, let's just deal with the questions and the answers. Do you also accept that the ADS quote should not have included VSS ILS costs?
Yes, I can accept that.
And therefore, the quote as received included a cost item which it should not have included. Is that right?
No, that I wouldn't know.
Well, you've accepted that the ADS bid contained an item for the VSS ILS costs. You've accepted it shouldn't have done so, so that I don't understand why you should have any difficulty in accepting that therefore the bid contained an item which it should not have contained.
No, the logic is different. What you asked me, what I replied to, is whether it should or shouldn't have included the VSS ILS, and that I agreed to. But what I don't know is whether it did or not.
Are you in a position to deny it?
I'm not, because that information is not clear, or it's been hidden from us, or it's being hidden from me. In fact, what I'm pretty sure is that there was far more detailed information available about the makeup of this bid. That's pretty clear. But that has been exposed to me, so I wouldn't know the answer to that question. It's very easy to say, look, I know, I put many bids together. You can say, here is our integrated logistics support. You don't necessarily need to break it down into the main SMS part and the VSS part, and then post facto just reduce it and say, well, that was actually for the VSS. The logic is clear. I don't know the details because that isn't exposed to me. So I can't say yay or nay with 100% certainty based on what I can see in front of me on black and white.
Now, on the assumption, and I'm putting an assumption to you, that the letter is honest and it's genuine and it's referring to an item in a bid which it should not have been contained in the bid, then the effect of that mistake would have been to increase the price of the bid, would it not?
Yes.
And that if one deducted that erroneously increased price, one would have the genuine price for the bid.
Yes.
And that's what happened.
You said that was an assumption. In the same vein, the assumption is yes, but that doesn't mean say that's the absolute fact.
Yes, I can accept that what you are saying to the Commission is you are not prepared to admit that in fact the costs of the VSS ILS had been omitted.
Yes, and that's not based on just a flyaway thought in my mind. This is juxtaposed with what Captain Nick Murray, who was involved in this process, maybe not absolutely directly involved, but he was certainly involved in this process. He testified that that the process was designed to, well, what he said was that he used to be at one stage a member of in fact he was a director of a private company, and the responsibility of the marketing departments of such companies is to find out the price of their competition. But in this particular instance, the SMS one, the process was designed in order to expose the SMS price, the C²R² SMS price, to its competitor. So I'm not saying that. So I'm not making my assumption purely baldly. It's assisted with that that statement as well.
Dr. Young, throughout your evidence, the Commission has heard you at various times relying on other people's allegations and so on. I just want to press on with the questions and answers directed to you. I'll come back to Captain Murray if you wish, but for the moment, the clear conclusion that we, I think, have agreed upon is that if you assume the costs of VSS ILS had been wrongly included in the ADS bid, if you assume that it wrote asking that those costs be ignored, and if that request was granted and the bid was reviewed on the basis of ignoring the erroneous increase, then that would have been fine.
It certainly wouldn't have been fine. Normally, in my own experience or view, is in a competitive bid like this, if one makes mistakes, they either just get ignored and one has to bear the brunt of the consequence, or at least they go out to a second round of tendering and keep the playing fields level.
Now, in order to keep playing fields level, I would have thought that if there was a possibility that your bid had erroneously included VSS ILS costs, and you weren't given an opportunity to correct that, then there might be a ground of complaint. But did your bid ever include VSS ILS costs?
Not that I can remember.
That's the first matter of which you were complaining about this bid, as I understand it. The second aspect of which you complained was that your bid price was made known, you think or say, to ADS. Is that right?
Yes.
By whom?
Well, somebody involved in the process who got access to the competitive bid.
And you have no idea who that was?
Well, one can, from what the black and white in front of us, there are the DOD parties and there's the GFC. I certainly wouldn't know which individual it was, but it's not only just my contention. I said I didn't just dream this up myself.
Or, if that's correct, that someone unknown got hold of it, it could have been one of these marketing agencies who were employed by one or other bidder for the purpose of getting information just like this. Is that possible?
It's possible theoretically, but if one is aware of the timescales of submitting a bid by 5 o'clock on the Thursday and a response coming in 23 hours later, I know marketing departments, they aren't that fast.
I certainly don't want to encourage you to speculate further, but you have no basis, in fact, to point a finger at DOD and say you, DOD, were guilty of some improper act, to wit, making my bid price known to my competitor.
No, I've never stated that.
Then the third complaint I think you have made was that, perhaps I'm confused, as I generally am, but wasn't there an increase on your bid of some 12%?
Yes, that's correct.
By whom was that increase of 12% done?
As far as I can work out, it was added on by the joint project team.
In respect of what?
It was in respect of three different elements. It's not a markup, it's a margin, so one does a dividing rather than a multiplying. But it was made up of, from what I can remember, the smaller amount, which I certainly didn't take issue with, was the amount of 1.85% or whatever for extended warranty. Then there was a 7% for a integration fee, for ADS's integration fee, and then there was another 3% handling fees, from what I can remember. So they add up to 12.05. If you add them up arithmetically, but to get the new price, you divide the price by 1 minus 12.05%. That there was a confusion there, and that's what makes a difference. There's quite a big difference between markup and margin, and it was significant. That's why I'm elaborating on it. But that's where that additional price increase came from.
In other words, the project team was saying to itself, I see the C squared I squared bid price, but I had better understand what ultimately it's going to cost me if I accept this bid, and I had better make provision for these particular add-ons or margins.
That's correct, yes.
So what is the complaint?
We should have been told in advance that that would happen. That's part of a fair bidding process. Anybody involved in bidding for anything in this country these days involving government bids, specifically military arms corps stuff, know that there are those kind of issues involving specifically what they call PDI, previously disadvantaged individuals. But the request for bid states that is a factor. It states what the amount is. And if one knows that one's own bid is going to have that subjected to it, you have at least got a chance of dealing with it. We didn't know that in advance, and that's what I'm saying, that's an unfair, maybe even an unlawful practice, an unlawful business practice. Because it's our prerogative, if we're quoting fairly in a competitive basis, if we know that, we could, of course, object to that. And, of course, we could decide to cut our profit margin from 15% to 3%, or from 20% to 8%, or whatever it is. But you can't take that in. You expect that your prices will be treated equally, unless you know. And that is my complaint. That was an unfair business practice.
Why do you say that the project team didn't subject the ADS bid to the same consideration of what it would cost the DOD ultimately if the ADS bid was accepted?
Yes, they didn't add that margin on, because my understanding is now, it certainly wasn't then, is that if it was ADS supplied, they wouldn't invoke the integration fee and the handling fee.
Now, my question is not whether the team should have applied the same, as it were, evaluation margin to both. My question was, surely the team would look at the ADS bid in the same light, namely to see what margins it should allow in respect of that bid. Are you saying that didn't happen?
I'm saying that didn't happen.
And was this really the first time that you were taking part in a bidding process in which the main contractor was no longer Arms Corps, but was a commercially driven main contractor?
No, we had been involved in. Well, I certainly can't remember competitive bidding situations of the same nature as this, but we certainly hadn't only been involved in bidding to Arms Corps.
And I'm just curious, are you suggesting you were not aware that this is what happens in competitive international bids, that the ultimate party who is paying for the goods exercises its rights to assess the various bids in order to calculate what the cost to it is going to be? Were you unaware of that practice?
What I'm unaware of is that if there are factors like that in a competitive bidding situation, that they are not made known a priori to the bidders.
But were you aware of the practice?
No.
Well, I can then understand that you had a loaning process.
No, that's also not true. I can't find it right now, but I do know that substantially after this period in time, the Corvette Combat Suite Program Manager Lewis Matheson actually wrote a letter a couple of months later to ADS, and I remember the name Daniel Klein, specifically asking about these margins and markups. So if Arms Corps, who was involved in this process, and I can tell you that Lewis Matheson reported directly to Fritz Norkier, and they reported effectively to then Captain Comman. If he didn't know, then how should I know?
There may well have been others who shared your ignorance, but I'm just dealing with the fact of your ignorance.
No, it's not. There certainly may have been others who shared my ignorance, but if this competitive bidding situation was precipitated by the joint project team, and one of the most senior members in that team being Lewis Matheson, that's a completely different scenario to the general term of others. That is somebody very, very specific in this particular instance.
I'm not going to get involved with your regurgitation of what you think other people said and what the significance was. I want to ask you about the NDS. You won that bid, didn't you?
That's correct, yes.
Was the same process followed of evaluation and of adding to your bid what it was thought would rightly be added in order to get a real idea of the cost?
As far as I know, it was, but in the NDS case, our price was low enough that that margin didn't swing it back to ADS.
Did you know that that practice was being followed?
No.
When did you come to learn that in regard to the NDS in which you were successful, the same process had been followed, the same amounts had been added on?
Several years later, when the documentation came to my attention.
I want to deal with your references to Captain Murray, as you call him. What was his employment at this time?
Well, he had been in private industry. Well, he had been in the Navy, then he'd gone to private industry, and then he came back for what I understand is known as a short-term contract for, I'm not sure whether it's 3 years or 5 years or whatever. And he was a member of the Naval Engineering Bureau, fairly senior in terms of rank at least, and he assisted the joint project team, or the project team, with many relevant aspects of this part of the selection process.
What was his involvement in this bid evaluation?
I don't think it was direct. I think he was just part of the greater joint project team.
So it would be correct to say that the man who you wish to rely on was not involved in the very situation you're complaining about?
Well, I wouldn't put it like that at all, because in fact I was reading Captain Carmerman's evidence to the JRT, and I can certainly find it. But he states there under oath that the members, it was an open sort of democratic process between all members of the JPT, and all were, if not necessarily involved in the decision making, but were involved in this process. So whether or not he was directly involved in this SMS issue, I wouldn't know, but he was certainly a member of the greater project team that were communicating with each other every day, and could well have surely would have known something like this, especially to state it under oath.
Are you prepared to accept that he was not involved in this bid and this bid evaluation, or are you going to speculate that somehow he had some participatory role, directly or indirectly? Where are we ever going to stop with your suspicions, Dr. Young?
Again, this is not a court where I have an onus of proof. My only burden here is to bring the relevant information to the attention of the Commission, and that is evidence under oath. I've got no reason whatsoever to suspect that Captain Murray is lying. I'm no friend of his. He's no supporter of mine, I can assure you. He was at least part of the greater team, and if he says that under oath, under questioning from the members of the Joint Investigation Team, it has to be relevant, at least in my book.
Did he ever say the process was irregular because a practice of evaluation which involved putting margins on the bids was irregular or improper?
No, not as far as I know. His one was far more pointed to unlawful competition, which is the divergence of competitors priced from one to the other. It's my contention that if it was fair to add on a margin, that should have been ad hoc and not post facto.
I want to go on to a different topic now. Chair, just bear with me a moment. I want to deal with the 300 million rand bribe that I think you say the Commission should investigate upon the basis that the price paid for the combat suite had been artificially inflated by 300 million rand, and that the effect was that the bidder was overpaid, and was overpaid on the basis that it would then use the 300 million rand to reward politicians or officials who had been corrupt. That's the conspiracy theory, is it?
Yes.
And that conspiracy theory involves as its basic contention that the price for the combat suite was artificially inflated, i.e., there was a genuine price which could have been accepted at 300 million rand less.
That's my contention after review of the you call it Navy, the Department of Defence documentation.
And I want to get to the root of that. And you are then postulating that there was a genuine price offer for the combat suite. At what price?
Well, it's your own words. You say there was a genuine offer, but from what I can remember, working from memory now, is at the Project Control Board of the 24th of April 1999, reported that the current price for the combat suite is now 2.3 billion, and with a potential of reducing fairly substantially by a couple of 100 million less, but at least it is clear to say that the current price on the table is 2.3 billion.
Yes, we're going to look at that document in detail in a minute, but I first want the allegation and the case you are asking the Commission to investigate to be stated quite clearly. You are saying there is the factual basis upon which I can say that there was a price 300 million rand less than the final price, and that the final price was therefore inflated in that amount.
Well, in the absence of any documentary evidence to the contrary, that would seem to be the logical conclusion of that distillation of that information.
Leave aside documentary information to the contrary. Is there any documentary indication, any documentary evidence you have been able to find that the reference to what you call the current price of 2.3 was in fact a current price?
Well, just in those, the minutes of that Project Control Board meeting, the presentation attached to it, and I believe the same presentation was also given to the Naval Board.
So in all the millions of pages of document that you have got and that you have for years examined, you have not found a single indication other than that one that there was ever a genuine price of 2.3.
Well, it certainly would be congruent with the fact that the expected price was 1.9. When you add lots of small things together, it certainly seems to make sense to me.
I'll ask you the question one more time, and then I promise you I'll leave it. You have never found a document which indicates that there was a genuine offer at 2.3.
You asking me to work from memory? I think now that of one of the many pricing spreadsheets that existed at that time also indicates a price of very close to 2.3.
Well, would you like to take a moment and look it up and tell us where you're finding a price which, if not 2.3, is very close to it?
Well, I'm still looking, but what I am finding here as well is, of course, there are more than one indication from the French documentation seized and regarding the Shabir Sheikh trial that they had also written down their expectation of a price of 2.3.
I think you mentioned that in your evidence before the Commission.
I did, but you asked me if there's any other single reference to a price of 2.3, and you asked me...
I'm not complaining, Dr. Young.
You know, now I'm having to search terms like spreadsheet or 2.3 and then open each one. Lotus 123 has got a very pathetic search capability because it always takes you back to the beginning, and I'm certainly prepared to look for this in a break, and I even believe that there's going to be something else happening this afternoon. And I'm prepared to use that time as well, not just to waste the Commission's time for me searching through documents.
Very well. Let me refer you to some documents that I think we need to discuss. The first document is to your RMY 80, which is to be found in Dr. Young's bundles, or the evidence leaders' bundles, file 4, starts at 1445, but I'm interested in the annexure at 1452. Have you been able to find 1452 of your RMY 80?
Sorry, I'm just writing down things while they're in front of me, not to waste time further. I think what you've asked me to open is the Project Control Board minutes.
Yes, and in particular, the briefing to the Naval Board of the 26th March 1999, which is found at page 1452.
I need to know, I don't have those pages. If you can just tell me what annexure it is, or...
Well, it's an annexure to the minutes of the Project Control Board. It's an annexure A minute, annexure to the Project Control Board meeting of the 20... I don't know what this date is. 28th April 99.
Okay, I have that.
Turn to annexure A.
I've got something written in the top right hand corner, says Appendix A.
Well, what you should have is a Project Citron Combat Suite Cost Reduction briefing to the Naval Board, 26 March 1999.
Okay, I can't see the word annexure there.
But have you got the document?
Yes, but you're referring to annexure. I couldn't find annexure, so I found appendix. Now you're chasing me around as though, I'm an idiot. I don't see the word annexure. I have got that page now.
I'm sorry, Dr. Can we just control our emotions?
No, there's no emotional here, but if there's a reference to the word annexure, that's what I look for. If the word annexure isn't there, then I don't immediately get upset. I go and look for the close word to it is appendix, and that is on a different page. I don't see the word annexure. That's quite reasonable for me to stay, and I'm not upset. I'm not emotional about it. It's just relevant.
Dr. Young, you have...
Thank you. I'm happy to hear that you are not upset. I'm sure we'll make a bit of progress.
Dr. Young, you have chosen throughout these proceedings not to have before you and not to follow the proceedings on the basis of the files handed out to everyone else. You have chosen rather to proceed by what's on your computer. And now, as I understand it, your lack of emotion is directed to the fact that you are having difficulty in following the proceedings by reason of looking at the computer instead of looking at the files which are open to you. So it really is your choice, Dr. Young.
No, not at all. Right from the beginning, I said it's difficult for me to read paper documents, especially when they are not that great photocopies, especially in this light. I can normally find things. In this particular instance, there's been no other problem, well, few other problems in this regard so far in my 10th day. But it was only that you referred me to Annexure A, and I couldn't find that, whereas I'd just been taken to Appendix A. That's the only issue. There's no need to raise the temperature of something regarding the use of my computer.
Do you now have what everyone else has at page 1452, which is the briefing to the Naval Board?
Yes, I do.
Will you please look at the third bullet point, which reads, GFC obtained proposal for combat suite of same functionality and scope of supply in February 1999, 3300, that's a 3.3 billion, bracket 65% increase. Do you see that?
Yes, I can see that.
And 3.3 is not 2.3.
I never said it was. The answer is no.
And there then follows in this briefing an explanation as to why there has been an increase in the combat suite costs. It's due apparently to the contracting model. It's due apparently to much more stringent contracting environment, which is new to the SA Arms industry. It's due apparently to the SA Arms industry inexperience in estimating for a major complex acquisition product. There's an underestimation of complexity, an underestimation of risk provision, commissions, miscalculations and errors. And there is an increase in cost of integration due to significant participation of overseas engineering management. And there's an increase in cost of combat management system from rudimentary, high-risk local system to capable low-risk TAVI-TAG-based system, more complex, more expensive architecture due to the new CMS. There's an increase in man-hour costs due to local personnel market conditions in certain sectors, electronic and software engineering. There's over-budgeting due to misinterpretation of the URS. Now, I'm not asking you to comment on whether you agree or whether you disagree with these justifications for the higher price, and which may well, in fact, emanate from the party who has just quoted in what is in effect an amount of 3.3 billion. Not interested in that at the moment. What I'm interested in this, the next bullet point talks of extraneous costs due to unnecessary terms and conditions. And you see the next one talks of unacceptable, inexplicable increases in certain items. So here you are seeing a response or a reaction to this cost increase and to all the reasons trying to justify the cost increase. And what I wanted to ask you is, can you understand and have you anything to say about an attitude on the part of the DOD, which was saying, but this price at 3.3 contains extraneous costs which are due to unnecessary terms and conditions, and it contains increases which to us are unacceptable or inexplicable.
I can accept that.
And if you'll turn the page, goes on that reduction in prices of foreign supplied items switch to alternative local suppliers for certain items that were totally overpriced. Do you go along with that as well?
Yes, indeed.
And then you get a reference to technical and operational recommendation require Naval Board approval, and then you get in the bullet point, combat suite price, now approximately 2.3 billion. Is that right?
That's correct.
And it's that bullet point on which you build your edifice in which you say, there was a price at 2.3.
That's not correct.
Do you not rely on this?
No.
You're not suggesting that this demonstrates that there was a genuine price of 2.3.
I do, but it's not that. You asked me specifically this time. You said whether I rely on that bullet point. I don't rely on that bullet point. I rely on something else.
Well, can we then go on? Do you accept in regard to this bullet point that what is being talked about is where the price can be brought down through negotiation if one takes into account all the points that the DOD could raise about extraneous costs, about unnecessary terms, about inexplicable increases, and about the way of reducing through making it local rather than foreign?
No.
Very well. Now you want to take this, I want to take this further. You then get a program cost summary.
Partly.
That means you are suggesting that this is a reference to a price that has been offered, as opposed to it being an objective to which the author of this report believes that the offer can be brought down to.
Partly.
You understand the difference?
Yes.
And of course, it's in regard to that contention of yours that the Commission should interpret this document not as containing an objective, a ceiling, a price to which they wish to get through hard bargaining, but should rather interpret it as meaning they have got a firm bid, or they could get a firm bid at 2.3, a genuine price at 2.3.
Well, again, it's partly. It's all of those things and more. When I get a chance to explain, I will certainly do so, and I hope that chance comes soon.
For the moment, can we just finish this document? You see, it actually talks then that final price negotiations commence on the 3rd of May. Estimate can negotiate another 3 to 5% off the ship platform price, and can reduce the combat suite an estimated another 100 million after negotiation with GFC commencing the 3rd of May. And it then talks about 60 million off the current ADS price because especially inflated program management, and then another 40 million estimate of cost savings if the state provides program management assistance. Therefore, I can report that Corvette is within the goal of cabinet approval of 6.001 billion. See that?
Yes, I see that.
Is this then the document which in part you ask the Commission to infer was actually reflecting a genuine price received at 2.3?
I don't think I ever said in that many words that a binding commercial offer had been received for 2.3. What I'm saying is the price indications were at this stage, as is clear in front of me as hopefully it is for all of us, is this doesn't just indicate that this 2.3 is a goal for the future. It says there clearly in bold capitals, program cost summary today, not in the future. It says 2.3 for the combat suite. That's what it says. But more, what you've just gone through, it says that the future actions are going to bring that down by a substantial amount, down by another 100 million, from the 6.1 billion to the 6.0. Did I say use 100 million? So that is the future. There's no other logical interpretation. That is what the price was today at that time. Well, at least to somebody else reading it in the sober light of today, 16 years later, that's what it says. So that is, I think the minutes also have something on this as well. But certainly this is clear enough to me. When I juxtapose that with the prices of 2.3 billion that are indicated that the French were expecting, then it all makes logical sense, as that was the price. The Navy was expecting 2.3 at that date, with an expectation of even lower. The French were recording that was their expectation. So it's fairly reasonable, at least, to conclude that was a price that could have been achieved.
You said a minute ago that you were hoping and waiting for an opportunity to add anything you wanted to say. Have you now said it, or is there more you would like to say?
I think that is probably sufficient until I find the spreadsheet regarding the 2.3.
So now, in the context of all of this, the entire evidential basis, as I understand it, rests on this document and then rests on a handwritten emendation in a ADS or GFC document, which you say supposed that a price had been offered or was on the table of 2.3 and had now fortunately been increased to 2.6. That's as yet the documentary evidential basis for a massive bribe of 300 million payable to who knows who.
Well, again, you're incorrect. I've already traversed this before, where you say merely the supporting evidence for this is merely some handwritten thing. I did when I was looking for the 2.3, I found one of the two documents. There certainly is a handwritten one written by Pierre Morneau, but the one that I can't remember adducing into the evidence earlier is a encrypted fax, a French one from Alain Tetard, and that is a table of the opportunities for main programs expected in the next 10 years, and that is in South Africa, the Naval Combat Systems corvettes, and the amount is 2.3 gigafrancs. And remember, the gigafranc and a gigarand were very, very, very close to each other, and that is that is typed as 2.3. It is then changed by hand to 2.6, which would accord with the change between what was recorded here on the 24th of April and what finally transpired at the price of 2.6. As I also said, I think this matter is referred to in the minutes of this meeting, whether it's this meeting or the next one, where the Chief of Acquisitions does become involved in the discussions of the Corvette Combat Suite price and says, or at least for me the first time, and would seem to even to the participants of the Project Control Board for the first time, that the affordability study indicates a price for 2.6. So that the price seemed to be settled at 2.6, and there never seemed to be any further negotiation downwards or upwards or whatever from the 2.3. It was just accepted at 2.6. So that is the information which I wish to put to the Commission.
Thank you, Dr. Young. Could you just give us the reference to the second French document that you were dealing with? I think you dealt with it in your statement, but just give us the reference.
No, I don't have those references immediately. I can find them, but well, okay. Let me just put it. What I can say is it is the discovered document index DT1-0433.
I'm sure the evidence leaders will assist us in correlating that. Dr. Young, can I bring you back, as it were, to page 1451, that is to say the annexure, and remind you that the reference there under the combat suite status is to price discussions, negotiations commenced February 99 with combat suite price at 3.9 billion. You see that?
Yes.
Suggest that's false?
No, that was, I think, from what I can see here, this was the background.
If the negotiations then resulted in a price drop to 3.6, then the negotiations had been successful, were they not?
Well, partially. I mean, one of the things to reduce from 3.9 to 3.3 was the whole issue of, well, there were two things. The issue of risk, which I can remember, I think accounted, the management or handling of addressing of risk accounted for 600 million. That's the one aspect of it. And the 3.9 billion, I'm sure even in the DOD's own view, was vastly inflated.
I want, in this context, to take you to what was your document, RMY 81, which will be found, Chairman, at 1464 in this same file. Do you have it, Dr. Young? It's the minutes of the Project Control Board meeting held on the 27th of May, 1999.
Yes, I have that.
I want you to turn there to page 292 and to look at item 16 at page 1466, Chairman, item 16, which is headed financial.
Yes, I have that.
Do you see that it says the best and final offer was received on the 24th of May from GFC, incorporating the price reductions arising from functional and scope reductions of both platform and combat suite. The German frigate consortium has stated they cannot reduce the offered price any further. The chairman then explained the contractor's concern with respect to their negotiations with the Department of Trade and Industry and the Department of Finance. POP Citron said he believes the combat suite price could be reduced to less than 2.6 billion. The PMP Citron then stated that the project team would not be able to reduce the price any further unless a different suite configuration and contracting model is used. The chairperson indicated that a total of 6.6 billion was set aside by the Department of Finance in the affordability study documents presented to the Cabinet Subcommittee. A combat suite price of 2.6 billion was indicated in the affordability documents. Now, do you suggest that a best and final offer had been, do you contest that the best and final offer had been received on the 24th May in the terms reported?
Yes.
Yes, you do contest it.
Sorry, no, I agree. It had been, a best and final offer had been submitted.
And that price indicated that in the interim, and since the Naval Board report of the 26th March, there had in fact been negotiations which had in fact reduced the original price.
Yes.
Chairman, just bear with me, we're looking for a document. Will you turn in the same file to page 296? It's page, 1470, 1470.
Could you refer me to a RMY number?
RMY 81. It's the Project Control Board meeting of the 27th of May.
I think that's what's in front of us already.
I'm referring to page 1470, which is annexure, or you would say appendix A. Do you have it?
It's not that I say it's Appendix A, the document says that it's Appendix A.
Do you have it, Dr. Young?
Well, I don't have Annexure A, I've got an Appendix A.
And you will see that at that page, the report is dealing with the present position in regard to price. And you'll see that under the heading Vessel BAFO, it's Vessel Best and Final Offer requested from GFC 6th of May 99, BAFO received 24th of May 99, offered for the ship platform 3.7 billion, that represents a 4% reduction from the GFC offer of the 11th of May, 1% due to GFC's effort, mainly from the propulsion system suppliers, 3% reduction due to SA Navy reduction of scope of supply performance. And you'll remember in the earlier document we were looking at, there had already been that suggestion that the Navy do reduce the scope of supply or performance. Do you remember?
Yes, I'm well aware of that.
And there's been certain other matters relating to the platform we needn't bother about further. Then in regard to the offered combat suite, do you see the price there is 2.9 billion?
Yes, I do.
Our expectation was 2.6 billion, derived from the quote of the 7th of April 99 of 2.775, reduced by at least 1.75 billion due to lower prices for the FBI radar, sonar and missile segments as evaluated and selected late April.
It doesn't say that.
I'm sorry, what doesn't say that?
What you've just read into the record was not an accurate reflection of what is written there.
Please correct me.
Very good. It says our expectation was less than 2.6 billion. You said our expectation was 2.6 billion.
You're quite right, I did. I overlooked the arrow. Thank you, sir.
That's not an error, that's a less than sign.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Young. And having corrected me in that way, is there anything else you'd like to correct?
No, there's nothing else I'd like you to correct.
Thank you. So what we have here is a contemporaneous history of what the price offers had been, to how they had been reduced, both in regard to the platform and in regard to the combat suite. Is it your contention that this is false?
No, it's not my contention that it was false. My contention is that that the higher prices of whether it's 2.6 or 2.775 or 2.964 were substantially overpriced.
Then if you'll turn to page 1471, you'll see a heading which is current status. Do you have that?
Yes, I do.
Ship Platform Commercial, GFC has stated that their offer of 11 May 98 was their best effort after a long competition and a reduced price for the A200, that they cannot go down more than the 1% offered to date. Combat Suite, ADS's response yesterday, 2.6 billion, offer reduced by 330 million. Large amounts still outstanding, e.g. errors in calculating ADS selling price to use for Aerospatiale missile and Thomas Marconi sonar, exceeds 80 million. We'll discuss this issue today. Dassault data bus now offered in place of the C2I2 bus. Project team awaiting full specification and system architecture implications before this can be deemed to be acceptable. Contractual responsibility vis-à-vis the subsystems not precisely defined or acceptable, awaiting further input from GFC ADS. Do you suggest that any part of what I've read to you under the combat suite, I hope correctly, is false?
I'm not sure whether false is the term that I prefer to use. What I would say, for at least for the purposes of a commission on an information gathering exercise, the very fact that it refers to the reduction in price, obviously down from about 2.9 down to 2,634 by a reduction of 330 million, and juxtaposing that with the issue of the prices of the, especially the aerospatiale missile, certainly in the context of the lease/purchase option that was previously referred to, I think that that is of specific interest and possibly specific significance.
Yes, I think you're quite right to bring into prominence the question of the missile. And let me just confirm it with you. It is your suspicion that the 300 million was made up, as it were, by missiles that weren't purchased?
It's my suspicion, it's my theory, that a different mechanism other than outright cash purchase was used to acquire the missiles.
And that would account for either the full 300 million or a significant part of it?
Yes, I would guess if the 330 is due to the missile and the sonar, then the sonar would have possibly taken something like 30 million, and then the missiles would have contributed the lion's share of that.
Yes, so in order to see your theory in its full-blown glory, the Commission must understand there was the manipulation of price, which you've been dealing with, and that you go further and connect that with the missile story, which is why you are now saying we should pay attention to it when it's mentioned at page 1471. But I'll deal with that later, Dr. Young. I want at the moment to stay with the information that's being reflected at page 1471. And so we have, if we trace it, a reduction in the offer as it was at page 1470 to what it is now at page 1471, a reduction from 2.9 billion to 2.6 billion. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
And indeed, the deal was concluded and contracted out at 2.599. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
And that would then take us to this second aspect to which you've been pointing, namely the missile aspect. And I want to just try and capture, if I can, all the various theories that you have put up from time to time in regard to the missiles, and then having identified all the possibilities, get you to comment further. Dr. Young, my understanding is that in your testimony to the JIT in 2001, the proposition that you put up was that the Navy had bought no missiles and had concealed the fact that it had bought no missiles, and that the 300 million set aside for the missile ammunition was probably used as a cover for bribes. Is that right?
Well, not exactly like that. I can't remember testifying that the Navy bought no missiles whatsoever. My theory is, and I said right at the outset, this is based on the tiny snippets of information that appear in all of this series of documents. But when I've asked for the source documents for this commission, they've always been declined, refused, or ignored. I think probably ignored is the best. Okay. So I can only work from what fairly substantive indications are in this series of documents. But I think it's not as though I said that the no missiles were bought at all. I mean, it's common cause that the original acquired amount budgeted in the 1.47 billion, or the escalated amount of 1.9, included 32 missiles. But it's common cause that was reduced to 17. It was reduced by half. So that, again, is a fairly fundamental aspect. But the 17 consists of 1 for the purposes of testing, qualification, and 16 for what is called not so much war stock, but on-board rounds. And it is my theory, from what I can see, and some of the stuff as I can see is also redacted, redacted out or severed. So it's difficult in the face of that to come with bulletproof, court quality proof beyond all reasonable doubt. But that's not my obligation here. But it certainly seems as though 1 missile was purchased in the amount that was paid of 182 million, whatever. That seems to be there. What we also do know as a fact is whether we talk about the term purchase or acquired, is that Admiral Carman testified that 17 MM40 Block 2 missiles had been acquired, which only came to light many years later, I think in 2005 or even 2007, that in fact that was not correct, that 6 Block 1s had been acquired and 9 Block 2s. So certainly my thesis or my theory or conspiracy, whatever one wants to call it, has some basis of fact, because that's not my version. So that leads into it. But also, I think it's the previous Project Control Board documentation specifically refers to the lease/purchase option, as does ADS's relevant documentation regarding their best and final offer. It specifically refers to removal of the ammunition and a reduction thereof of something like 300 million. So if you put all of that together, it certainly leads to the possibility that something like I'm theorizing about could have happened.
Dr. Young, the question I had asked was simply whether you had put to the JIT the proposition that the Navy had bought no missiles, had concealed that fact, and that there was the 300 million. That was the question. What is the answer?
So I can't remember saying they'd bought no missiles whatsoever. I might have said they'd bought 1. But I certainly think that what I could have testified is that they never bought 17 MM40 Block 2 missiles.
The next possible theory I think you have put up is the one you're talking about now, that the Navy bought no missiles, but instead leased 17 missiles, had concealed the fact of the lease, and had used the money for bribes.
No, I didn't say that. In fact, again, after me clearly stating something you're still getting it wrong, I said the purchase price for the missile system, what it seems to me from some of the documents, is 182 million, and that, as clearly as can be seen, which is not all that clear, contains 1 missile, the missile for system qualification. So it's not by 0 or 17. It could be, according to my theory, that they purchased the system, which is onboard system, which includes the 2 launchers per ship, plus the missile control console within the combat suite and the operations room and the system integration and all of that qualification, plus 1 missile to test. And then another 16 missiles were handled differently.
I see. So there was a purchase of 1 missile and a lease of 16.
That certainly could be a possibility according to the information that I can see in the documents.
And is that the possibility that you are presently putting before the Commission, or are you putting before the Commission a smorgasbord of options in which you're not actually championing one rather than the other?
They all point in the same direction, and what the main point I'm trying to make is to contradict your point of that missile money being the bribe money. That's not necessarily. That's not certainly not my direct contention. My direct contention is that that was the way of which a acceptable price, at least according to the affordability report, of 2.6 was achieved, whereas in fact, as we can see in front of us, the price then was at 2.9, which I would think included the outright purchase of those 16 onboard missiles. And I think the documentation, the contents of the documentation, indicate that a strong possibility that the price was reduced from the 2.9 to the 2.6 was that the acquisition of the missiles was handled differently, and therefore was able to exclude that 300 million.
But that's in bringing it down from 2.9 to 2.6.
Yes, 300 million is the difference between 2.9 and 2.6.
Not the way it was brought down, according to you, the way it was brought up, according to you, from 2.3 to 2.6?
No, I didn't say that.
The missile theory, as I understand it, is trying to explain where the 300 million came from, where the briber found the 300 million, found it in an inflated purchase price, and what inflated the purchase price was the missiles. I thought that was the theory.
No, you're wrong. You obviously haven't been listening to me or reading my documents properly.
So forgive me, dear me, forgive me, yes, and just explain then what the 300 million in regard to the missiles, how it features.
Yeah, it's just possibly unfortunate that the amount of 300 million crops up twice in possibly related circumstances, but not directly relevant according to my theory. Now I've got two sub-theories. I've got one sub-theory regarding the increase of price from 2.3 to 2.6, which remains, for me at least, unexplained. That's one. The other one is how the price was managed to be reduced from 2.9 to 2.6.
And in which of those two does the missiles feature?
The latter one.
So it's got nothing to do with inflating the price upwards from 2.3 to 2.6.
I'd say, when you say with a great loud emphasis, it's got nothing to do whatsoever. I've said they might be related, but they might not be directly relevant. I think all of the stuff, not one single item of this whole process of the price going from 1.47 to 3.9 to 2.3 back to 2.9 to 2.6, whatever it was. I don't think anything is completely unrelated. Not completely unrelated. It's what we can see in front of us.
Dr. Young, there does come a point when you just can't go on talking in this fashion. I want to know from you whether you say that the missile 300 million belongs to your theory of inflating the price from 2.3 to 2.6.
No, it doesn't.
You now say it belongs to your theory of how 2.9 was brought down to 2.6.
That's correct.
And any previous evidence you might have given which put the missile 300 million firmly in the bringing it up from 2.3 to 2.6, any such suggestion would have been an error on your part.
No, it wouldn't have been an error on my part. I think that was done in 2001. By that stage, I hadn't even received the prior documentation, which I only received in between, I think, 2003 and 2006. So that would have been, to the best of my ability, of what, first of all, I knew, but I probably need to state that although my theory, especially as it stands out today, is backed up by some kind of arithmetic plausibility at least, but I have to say, and I'm not prepared to divulge their names, as I have been told by two senior naval officers that my theory is actually correct.
I'm sorry, okay. Now, Dr. Young, how does it help the Commission if a trolley your theory is backed up by other people whose names you are not prepared to disclose? How are we going to follow that up in order to determine whether is there anybody who supports your theory?
Well, of course, you should actually subpoena everybody in the Navy.
To just hold on, maybe it might be a good advice. Let me just understand it. You're saying we must subpoena everybody who's in the Navy. Do you mean those who are currently in the Navy, or that includes even those who have already left the Navy? We must subpoena all of them.
No, not all of them. Since the Navy is now nearly 100 years old. Not all of them, just the people who are involved in the relevant. You see, you're not going to get out of me the names of the people who confirmed my theory. You're not going to get that out of me. I will protect those, not with my life because I don't need to die, but what the reason why I made that, this is not just a simple malicious retribution against whoever. This, where something comes to my attention, and I do have some kind of experience and background and analytical capability from what went on, both the arithmetic as well as the logic that is borne out in the documents. But if there are people who were in a reasonable position to have some independent idea of that, it is a responsible thing to ask them, is this plausibly true? And in both instances, and one I can say goes back to the 2000 era, and one was much more recent than that, 3 or 4 years ago. And I will say, I'm not going to divulge their names, but I'm just showing that the reasonability of my follow-up is that in the latter instance, after explaining, the response was, Richard, you are 100% correct.
Just hold on, Dr. Young. Up to now, I don't understand you. I was just simply trying to find out where should we start. You said to us that we must subpoena everybody in the Army. I'm just trying to find out, should we start with those who came into the Army from 1994, or should we even go before 1994, in order to try and see whether we can find those two people who confirmed your theory?
I don't think it's even fair for me to start ventilating time scales. I mean, the next thing will be ranks, and the next thing that, you talked about the Army. It's not the Army, it's the Navy. But I'm just saying these are two senior people in the Navy. They're commissioned officers. So that's about as far as I'm prepared to say.
I don't think we can take this point any further. Maybe this might be the right time.
Sorry. As you please.
Maybe we should come back after 15 minutes or so. Thank you.
What's that then? What is it Brad? What is it? wasn't running up.
Then,
101.
eh?
101.
I do.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to ask you to think about something just for a moment, and I won't come back to it. But you told the Commission the story of speaking to two admirals whom you wouldn't identify, of having put your theories to them, and how, in effect, they said to you, Richard, you know, you're probably right. It's just because I have some involvement with the Navy's sense of humour. Do you think that they might be pulling your leg?
Not in the slightest. And I don't want to reduce the pool of possible suspects, but I didn't say that they were admirals.
Let's press on where we were going, and that's quite the question of the missiles. And now I am not any longer interested in whether you package it as your theory that that's 2.9 down to 2.6, or you want to package it, it's your theory 2.3 up to 2.6. What I'm interested in is the alternatives that you are offering the commissioners for them to investigate. And as I understand it, the question of the missiles, or almost all of them, having been leased rather than purchased, is at the heart of your present allegation.
Not only, it is an aspect. Another aspect directly related is that the missiles that were acquired were not all of them the Naval Board approved MM40 Block 2 missile, but some of them were actually acquired with the MM40 Block 1. That's part of the theory, of the information.
But you know perfectly well that you've this purchase of not being exclusively Block 2 but including Block 1. You know that as a fact, do you not?
I only know that now.
And knowing it now, what is your point?
Well, the point is, I think, is that Admiral Carmerman testified in the JRT hearings that, well, what he didn't testify about was that some of the, well, not all of the ones that were acquired were actually Block 2s. Only much later, probably for these hearings, he acknowledged for the first time that some of them were Block 1s and the others were Block 2s.
I'm asking you, what point are you making? Are you saying that by buying some Block 1s, they were able to reduce the purchase price by 300 million or a significant part of 300 million? Is that your point?
I don't know the exact price, but I am pretty sure that the price of the Block 1s is less, I would guess, substantially less than the Block 2s.
So would that reduction mean that they paid for Block 2s but got a mix, a cheaper mix, and therefore overpaid?
No, I never said that.
I'm asking you as to where you're going with the theory.
No, that wasn't your question. You asked me whether they paid for Block 2s and got 1s. That's what you asked me. I'm sorry. I answered that question. It's actually very, very wrong of you, what you're doing to me right now, asking me a question and then saying that, and telling me something else. Okay, it's not my theory that they paid for Block 2s and got Block 1s. What I'm saying is that they were able to reduce the total cost of the missiles by acquiring some of them as Block 1s and not as Block 2s. That's what I'm trying to say.
Did it ever occur to you that the question of the missiles which the South African Navy has in fact acquired is a matter of some security sensitivity to the country?
Certainly, there are some aspects that could be sensitive, but if one looks at the available information, then whether they are, well, it would certainly be sensitive if it was commonly known that the frigates were meant to be fitted with Block 2s, but only had Block 1s. That might be sensitive.
Do you think that might be a reason why Admiral Kammerman would never have revealed that in a public inquiry, Dr. Young?
No.
Let's go on now. This entire theory, this theoretical castle that you're building, emanates from the fact that you have never seen the actual supply contract. Is that right?
Well, that is a complaint I have. If I'd been supplied with that as I'd been asking, then either it would have confirmed my theory or it would have put it to bed. But that is a two-angled issue. Is why has it been hidden from me? And if it has been hidden from me, what is the actual details?
I note the way in which you put it, that it would be hidden from you. The terms of the contract of supply, do you know whether they have confidentiality clauses which preclude the publication of information unless both parties agree?
Yes, I would imagine that applied to many different aspects of the STPs, including the Corvette contract, but only the most sensitive commercial information regarding not so much the actual price paid, maybe, but the pricing methodologies remain commercially sensitive. But the vast majority of the information can be declassified, in my view at least, in the year 2014 or 2015.
Frankly, Dr. Young, I don't think we're interested in your interpretation of a clause in a contract which requires mutual consent before publication. So let's just move on. I am going to show you a copy of the supply for the combat suite in regard to missiles, because your evidence and because your statements and because the publicity which you have given to this feature has now meant that it has gone into the public realm. So I'm going to show you a document which deals with the actual position of the purchase of missiles and the spread of the purchase of missiles, and we can deal with it however difficult it is now in the light of the impact strategically on South Africa. With your permission, Chair, I'll circulate the document. Chairman, may I suggest that this goes at the end of file 5 of the cross-examination file. Dr. Young, will you turn to the page which is marked 1106?
Advocate Cooper, can you just give us a moment, please?
Will you go to page 1106, please, Mr. Chair? Dr. Young, will you look at that, please? I'm looking at the paragraph 1.2 document outline. Do you have that?
Sorry, could you just confirm which the document that you've just been handed to me, is that correct?
That's correct.
I have that.
You'll see the second sentence of paragraph 1.2. It must be noted that the listings presented in this document comprise one ship set, and a total quantity of 4 ship sets are to be delivered. Where munitions war stock are to be delivered, the total delivery has been divided by the 4 so as to clearly identify the provision per ship. And on that basis, will you turn to 1107?
Sorry, could you just give me point that out to me and let me... Where was it that you've just read out?
I've read out what you'll find marked at the middle of page 1106.
Okay, quite honestly, I think, despite the sensitivity of this document, nationally speaking, of course it's sensitive to my own evidence, I would like to be given a reasonable chance to study this document in detail.
That's a request directed not to me but to the Chair.
That's correct, yes.
What do you mean by a reasonable time?
15 to 30 minutes.
Can we make it 15 minutes?
Yes, we can.
Advocate Cooper, besides this point, is there any other points that you want to deal with?
There are other points. They are not related to this topic, though.
Maybe let's adjourn for 15 minutes, then to give Dr. Young a chance to go through this.
As you please.
We'll adjourn.
Thank you, Chair. Dr. Young, I was pointing you to paragraph 1.2 at page 1106. And I had read to you what was said there. I'm sorry, you're obviously looking at something else. I had read to you what it said there, which was really that the figures that were going to be shown were per ship and not the total. And if you look at 1107, you'll see under description that per ship there were to be 2 Block 1 and 2 Block 2, which would give you 8 Block 1s and 8 Block 2s, to which you would add the 1 additional Block 2 supplied for the purpose of the firing trial, so that you would get 9 Block 2 and 8 Block 7. 8 Block, sorry. You would get 9 of Block 2 and you would get 7 of Block 1.
Okay, and I accept that, but I'd just like to get my head around this figure of 8 units for the launcher cradle. Is that per ship?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to correct myself first. It's 9 and 8. What were you saying, Doctor?
I'm just saying, just to get my head around everything here, in respect of the launcher cradle, that's got a figure of 8 there, 8 units. Is that 8 per ship, or is that 8 in total?
It's 8 per ship.
Okay.
Very well. What I wanted to put to you was that if this document is authentic, then I want to put it to you, it is clear that there was a sale and not a lease of the missiles. Are you now prepared to accept that?
No. What in this document shows that there was a sale? There's nothing in this document whatsoever that indicates that it's a sale, a purchase.
But this is part of the combat suite contract, which was a sale contract.
I don't see that this is part of a contract. In fact, it would indicate to me that it's not part of the contract, because it's dated the 16th of July, 1999. The contract was signed on the 3rd of December 1999. So it's not. It might be, but it's not. Doesn't indicate it to me.
Yes, I'm not prepared to take it further. I just want to record that, having seen the document, you reject it as demonstrating there was a sale, and you ask the Commission to persist in investigating your theories that there was a lease. Am I right?
All I'm saying is, and also being frank, this document is what I would view as too little and too late. This is a document. If this issue was going to be addressed in the context of this theme of mine, it's pretty late in the day to be issuing it to me. I think I can say, having a fair amount of experience with this, nothing sensitive in this document whatsoever, except for the fact possibly that there are Block 1 missiles as well as Block 2. But this is just an ADS document. There's no indication to show that it's part of a contract. I'm not 100% au fait with ADS's document numbering system, but certainly the one I do remember is this is just a Rev D, a Revision D. That's no indication to me that this is a final. There are only 2 initials on this. I can remember that at least most of these, the parts of the umbrella agreement had many more initials on than this. There's no price prices here. This could easily, or as easily, indicate that this was going to be acquired, but the method of acquisition is not indicated here. So unfortunately, it doesn't give me sufficient just to accept what you've just asked me to accept. But there's more I wish to say as well on the matter.
Please say more.
You see, I also developed this theory not only from tiny snippets of information, and this I could, and being slightly charitable, add it to the basket of snippets of information. But it's not a self-contained document which proves that point. It's it also doesn't indicate how these 17 missiles were at a certain price were contracted out of a total combat suite price of 2.6 billion. What I would have hoped to have seen, and being frank, it's not as though I submitted my theory in order just to get a response, but I would have hoped that if I got something adequate, it would have shown a clear link between the acquisition of the missiles at a certain price to an actual purchase and out of the total Corvette combat suite price. This doesn't do that in the slightest. But one thing that it does do is it goes to the other leg of my theory, complex or otherwise, and that was that Block 2 missiles were not acquired, were only 50% acquired. And I need to traverse, and I won't take more than 5 minutes over this, of what has been stated in the record of at least previous similar things such as this commission.
Dr. Young, so long as the Commission doesn't lose its patience, please go ahead.
Well, unfortunately, when a witness is giving evidence, it should be allowed to complete its evidence adequately, and I certainly don't think it would be adequate just to leave it at that point. So regarding the acquisition of the MM40 Block 1s, I mean, it is common cause that took 15 years to surface, despite I'd brought up this issue before. But I just want to refer actually what's in my own witness statement to a document. It is my RMY 55, which is I think it is. Anyways, I've got the words in front of me, but so which I will traverse. It's my discovered document DT1-0827. In any case, however, Admiral Carmen says it's my paragraph 455 in my witness statement, and I've got a number of quotations there. I'm not going to traverse all of them. I think that remains just for the context and the record. But I'll start off by saying Admiral Carmen testifies, I want, however, to emphasize that the Exocet MM40 Block 2 is the leading European missile and is supplied to dozens of nations, as in fact the frontline anti-ship missile right now for many NATO nations as we speak. It is a superb missile. Carrying on, so the missiles that were on the table in front of us, that is the MM40 Block 2 and the RBS-15 Mark III, represented and still represent the front edge of missile technology, anti-ship missile technology. The MM40 Block 1 was used in the Gulf War, and the MM40 Block 2 is a completely different missile. It is a brand new state-of-the-art missile. It is the leading edge of missile technology today. As I've said, the Naval Board was not prepared to compromise on our primary weapons. Now, that's fairly fundamental, and in distant conclusion, I can say it obviously did compromise on its primary weapons by buying half of them as Block 1s and not Block 2s.
Is there anything more you want to say, Dr. Young?
Other than case closed?
Yes, I think it probably is case closed. And nonetheless, you are persisting in asking the Commission to go and investigate whether there were possible leases of these missiles.
Yes, because you haven't proven to me, the document doesn't prove that the acquisition was not under some kind of purchase lease scheme and not as a direct purchase out of the 2.599 billion. So I'm not going to direct the Commission. I'm just a messenger here. I'm just bringing the information which has come to my attention. This is not meant to be flippant, but it can actually choose what it wants to do.
And then finally, you had referred in the course of your evidence relating to these topics to the documents emanating from, I think, Mr. Moyno, the French documents. And there you had been asked to give us the references, and we're just a little unsure from what we've heard, thank you, from the evidence leaders, whether you are in fact referring to two documents or to one document.
I can remember one specific document where it refers to the exclusion of the munitions. I think specifically with an amount of 300 million. So that's what I can remember. I can certainly find it, but it's certainly not the only reference in all the documents that I've seen to that possibility of reducing the price by means of, in some manner at least, of excluding the ammunition rounds.
Now let me help you, Dr. Young. I'm particularly interested in what you had said about the 2.3 billion price, and you had said that there were French documents that should be looked at. And in that regard, you had referred to two documents, but as we understand the evidence leaders, in fact, the reference to the second one was an error, and the single document which you were referring to is the document which is RMY 82. Am I right? I'm just trying to clear this up.
Okay, I scribbled down a DT1 0433. I actually made a mistake. It was 0432. But what I need to state is I never undertook to respond to that until lunchtime. I've just had a break regarding the missile issue. I certainly did not address that particular issue in that break. That's something I'm still coming to.
Well, there's the question of trying to finish the cross-examination. All I have to go on is that you did identify a document which is to be found in your bundle, file 4, at page 1490. It is your reference, DTI DT1 0432.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I either didn't explain myself or you misunderstood me. This was just a document relating to the price. I remember I was looking for a price of 2,3, and I was doing searches on the 2,3 as well as the search term spreadsheet. This is what I found regarding the price of 2.3 billion, whereas you said the only other reference was something handwritten, and I actually said, well, actually it wasn't. This was written it was printed in text, and that's what I found, and I just jotted down. This is not the reference to the exclusion of the munitions. That's a different document, and I specifically undertook to be able to doing it in a tea break or a lunch break, or I believe there's going to be something happening this afternoon regarding another witness. I said I'd do it in that, but I haven't come to that yet.
Dr. Young, I am talking about the price. I'm not talking about the missiles.
Okay, very good. Then I misunderstood you.
And am I right that in regard to the price, to finding some other reference to 2,3, you were referring the commissioners to page 1490 of file 4?
If that's the correct page out of my RMY 82, then you're correct.
Do you have that page in front of you?
I have that page on my computer in front of me.
It starts off Annex 3, country South Africa, is that right?
That's correct.
Now, it seems to be a standard form of some sort within the group of French companies, and it's looking at the main programs expected in the next 10 years, together with what is called K priorities proposed to the group. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Are you familiar and able to speak to the internal documentation used in this group?
No.
Do you know anything about the main programs and the expectations regarding it and the strategies of the group in regard thereto?
I have got some idea. I'm not fully aware of it. I do have some idea of the expectations.
Were you present when this particular document was presented within the company, if it ever was?
No, I wasn't.
Are you an outsider to this document?
Yes, I can read the document as an outsider.
Do you see in the column immediately above South Africa, in the third column, it says amount, total, accessible to the group? See that?
Yes.
Are you able, from your own knowledge, to say to what that relates?
Not 100%.
Well, you have no personal knowledge at all regarding the indication here of the amounts total accessible to the group.
No, I don't.
And all that comes to is that you want to point the commissioners to the fact that when it came to South Africa and the naval combat system corvettes, under the amount total acceptable to the group, accessible, the amount had been put in at 2,3, but that somebody had corrected it to 2,6.
That's correct, and of course the date of this document is also relevant.
And the date of this document, as you understand it, is what?
The 17th of May 1999, and the significance of that is right in the middle, in fact nearly the end of the Corvette price negotiating process.
Yes, I understand the 17th of May is in the course of negotiating. That was the facts enclosing this document, am I right?
That's correct, yes.
And it is from this document that you wish the commissioners to infer that there was a readiness to offer 2,3 as the bid price.
Well, the 2,3 is part of it, yes. And of course, the other important part, giving credence to that, is the increase to 2,6.
Do you know, were you present, when that correction was made?
No, I was not.
Chair, please bear with me. I don't want to invite you to speculate. You have no idea whether the 2,3 or any price mentioned in these documents include or don't include the amounts chargeable by Aerospatiale.
No, clearly not, because there is no reference to Aerospatiale there as far as I can see.
And they were supplying the missiles, were they?
Yes.
At 300 million?
Well, whatever it was, whether it was 182 million or 300 million, the answer is yes. I don't know what price they supplied because I haven't been given a document to show the purchase agreement, so I wouldn't know what the final purchase price was.
Yes, I won't go into that, so I'll withdraw the 300 million. As you sit there now, seeing the documents, seeing the explanations I'm just suggesting to you in regard to this particular document, are you prepared to conceive that your complex theories may be mistaken?
Well, right from the beginning, I said, based on the dearth of information and the finality of information, that I could be mistaken. But to be frank, what I have heard, been presented with, and answered and readdressed in terms of my own talking to the documents, it's certainly possible that there is something that I'm missing. It's possible, but it hasn't been proven to me. But what I can say for certainty, there certainly seems something amiss regarding the actual amounts and the type of missiles.
Fortunately, it doesn't have to be proven to you, Dr. Young. I want to move on because I do want to conclude this cross-examination. When and where did you meet Pat Kammerman?
I have met him once, but it wasn't in the context of when I mentioned his name.
The context in which you mentioned his name was the context of hearsay upon hearsay in regard to President Mbeki or Deputy President Mbeki allegedly giving an instruction to Admiral Kammerman and to the Chief of the Navy as to the outcome of the bids. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
And there you were able and willing to disclose the name of Admiral Kammerman's brother as one of your hearsay informants, weren't you?
Well, I actually said that it was hearsay. I said that I didn't hear it directly from him. In fact, I think I said it might be double hearsay. I do know that a commission of inquiry, or in fact, certain legislation, that if hearsay is the best evidence, then it is at least. What?
I'm sorry, Dr. Yang, for the purpose of progress, leave the question of legal interpretation to us. Just answer the question. It has got nothing to do with your understanding of the law. Your understanding of the law might even be incorrect. Just answer the question. You disclose the name of Mr. Kammerman and listen to the question that the Advocate Cooper is asking you and answer the question. Leave the legal implications thereof.
And the question is, why were you prepared to disclose his name when you have steadfastly refused to disclose to the Commission the names of any of your sources who you say you will protect, if not till death, then at least very vigorously?
Well, it's simple, because I never spoke to him directly. You're correct when I say I heard that through another party. And there was no indication from him to me, direct or otherwise, verbal or body language, that he was either a source for me or a source that I had to protect. He's in a different category to the other sources who I wish to protect.
He's in a different category for this reason, Doctor. His name is Kammerman. He's a brother to Admiral Kammerman. And your wish is to be as malicious and to take revenge on Admiral Kammerman if you can. And therefore you were quick to release his name purely out of malice.
No, it's completely incorrect that it's out of malice. It's only in regard of giving my evidence, and it's certain. That's the first part. It's nothing. It's only to do with supporting my evidence, which is a complex thing to do. It's not. And it's only a matter of information. It's not a matter of proving anything. That's the first part. And secondly, you said I was quick to do so. I certainly wasn't quick to do so, because otherwise I would have written it in my witness statement. That would have been quicker. It was not said in my evidence in chief. It was only said in cross-examination. So there are two reasons why I can prove that it wasn't quick.
I'm moving to another topic, and I hope I won't have to deal with it at all. You don't claim to be an expert in constitutional law, do you?
No.
You don't claim to be an expert in administrative law, do you?
No.
Therefore, there's nothing I wish to ask you about concerning your allegations of irregularities, either in regard to the Constitution or in regard to the way in which you say the practices of the procurement was irregular. I think we can leave that to the Commission. Do you agree?
I don't think we can put it quite as simply as that. One doesn't have to be a legal expert with a LLB degree and whatever else. But as a layperson, one can still have sight of small parts of the Constitution. And I just want one relevant example, and that is, as far as I remember, the constitutional imperative in terms of acquisition or procurement regards one very short section. I think it might be section 217, but it just regards competitiveness. And I want to say that in the context of the BAE SEMA acquisition, Admiral Common's angry evidence regarding the BAE was not only incorrect in 90% or the vast majority of it, but it certainly came across that what we were interested in doing, providing a competitive bid, was just so wrong. It would have put South Africans out of business. It would have bankrupted companies. It would have taken work overseas, all of that kind of stuff. But the point I wanted to make is that there is a right to compete. There is a right of competition. It's a constitutional imperative. One doesn't have to be an expert in law, certainly constitutional law, administrative law, for that. So what I'm saying is Admiral Common's position that he took on that is an indication of, I'm not quite sure whether he's representing himself or the Department of Defence, but he's representing the Department of Defence, which is responsible for acquisition. And that Department of Defence took the position of not allowing competition. That is highly wrong.
You don't seem able to leave Admiral Kammerman alone.
Well, you see, it's not that I want to. I genuinely, unfortunately, have to involve him, but it's far more my style, and I think that I've proven that it's far more my style, other than what I write on my website, maybe, and not all of that is 100% serious. I mean, but whatever, it's more my style, is certainly in giving evidence under oath, is to play the ball and not the man. But if you look at Admiral Kammerman's evidence, witness statement, and his testimony, the opposite applies. He is far more inclined to play the man, being me, than the ball. And that what's the right word? Inclination goes right back to at least the public protector hearings that I can remember.
Without your assistance?
I would certainly hope so.
And the last comment I have to make to you, Dr. Young, is simply a remark you made. It's of little consequence that you made it. I just don't want a wrong impression to be left. You said in the course of your evidence at some point that nobody had challenged what you say Colonel Duploy would say, and therefore it could be accepted as a fact. And I just wanted to point out to you that Colonel Duploy is not the DOD's client, not part of the DOD, that we have no access, and you certainly must not believe that what you say about Colonel Duploy is regarded as having been established as such. Thank you, Chair. I have no further questions.
I beg your pardon, Chair. I think before we perhaps either adjourn for lunch or the next cross-examiner proceeds with the cross-examination, there are certain documents that Dr. Young was invited to produce during the course of cross-examination. I think yesterday he apparently has the documents which he wants to provide to the Commission pursuant to the invitation made to him during cross-examination. I think the copies will be made as soon as he finishes them to the Commission administrative staff.
Well, may I say, Chairman, that it was not an invitation to Dr. Young to come and give further evidence on documents. It was an invitation to Dr. Young to produce the documents so that we, the cross-examining team, could see them, and whether we would then wish to take them further. I hadn't realized that Dr. Young had produced these documents, and I would invite the team leaders to let us see a copy.
Chair, the point we're making is Dr. Young has the documents. He wants to have the opportunity to collate them and deliver them to. Yes.
Sorry, may I say something at this point? Okay, I've got just 3 sets of documents. Every one of them has been asked for by Advocate Cooper in the last few days. None of the documents are anything over and above what I already adduced into evidence. It's only with response to what was requested. And it was advised to me that this should at least put on the record that I actually am or have provided these documents. More so, unfortunately, Advocate Cooper is wrong yet again, because not only did he request these documents, but he has used these documents in two instances. Anyway, there are only 3 categories, so I'm going to put on the record what they are. Originally, the original request was to include the ASM minutes, okay, which was done. Okay, and I provided I do have those documents, but I provided them to Advocate Mdumbi, and I sent it to a copy to the chairperson, care of the admin email, and to my evidence leaders. That was done on the 18th of March, so that's nearly a week ago. I'm just recording that I've done that. The second request I had from Advocate Cooper was to provide the correspondence with German prosecutors in Düsseldorf, Herr Gotter, and there was a number of them. And as far as I remember, they copied them because they were given them to not by me, but Advocate Ndumbi. But it didn't happen on the record. It needs to be for the record, for the transcript, which is an enduring thing, unlike my oral evidence. Okay, and that was done on the 24th, which is just a couple of days ago. And I know that they've also copied those documents and actually used them. The third one was, my understanding was, and I took a quick note, was that Advocate Cooper asked me for whether my company, where I had a original copy as received by fax of the German facsimile entitled Notiz. Okay, and he specifically referred me to the matter of whether a fax has a record of it being sent by fax. And like that one, I provided that to Advocate Ndumbi on the 24th. But that issue hasn't come back again. So it's important to put in the record, if I get asked for documents in cross-examination, that I have actually done so. I'm not sure where that document hasn't been used again, but my understanding, because I think I discussed it with Advocate Ndumbi this morning, is that he's certainly in possession of it, whether or not it's been provided. But there's nothing more, and there's nothing untoward, as Advocate Cooper seems to be suggesting, of this particular point.
Yes, Chairman, I really would hate to suggest that Dr. Young is wrong in anything or has misunderstood anything when it comes to my requests of him. But all these documents, as he rightly says, except for the last, he had provided before cross-examination began. And indeed, in cross-examination, of course, I mentioned those documents and used them. But during cross-examination, questions were raised as to further documents. Now, if Dr. Young is saying there were no further minutes, therefore there are no further documents other than the ones I already gave you at the time you were cross-examining, or if he is saying in respect of the other documents that there is nothing more, then we're in happy agreement with him, and there is certainly no need to keep him waiting for an analysis of further documents. There is that one document that I don't think we have seen, which is the fax transmission. But that would be the only document, and if it's already in Advocate Ntumbi's possession, we could see it in a minute. I don't even have to ask for that minute, Chair. I understand it has been shown to a member of the team. There is nothing more I need to do about it.
Thank you. You know, we see it's already 1 o'clock. Can I just get an indication from legal representatives who are keen to cross-examine Dr. Young, more or less, how long are they each going to take? Just a rough indication, because that will help us to plan our next move.
Mr. Chair, I'm supposed to be next, but my colleague on behalf of Arms requested that he starts before me. But in any event, on your question, I don't intend to develop theories for an hour or two. I intend to spend not more than 20 to 30 minutes on cross-examination.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. We also don't think we're going to develop long theories, and I don't think it will be more than 20 minutes in cross-examination.
Chair, in the light of the evidence that we have been listening to over the past 10 or more days, I don't think we shall be more than about half an hour. I would also ask for an indulgence, Chair, because I have a commitment in Johannesburg at 5 o'clock. If perhaps I could go before my colleagues, that would be useful.
I will come back to you on that one. Mr. Choi?
Chairperson, I'm without a microphone, but my instructions are not to cross-examine the witness.
Thank you. So basically we're looking at about just 1.5 hours. Or maybe to be safer, we're looking at 2 hours. If at all we're going to be busy for 2 hours, I think maybe it might just be safe to adjourn the cross-examination of Dr. Young until tomorrow morning. And I'll tell you why. Our difficulty is that there is a witness from overseas. And I learned this witness needs to be out of the country by tomorrow morning. That witness was not subpoenaed. She came on her own here. So I thought maybe we should give her first preference and then get the evidence on record, and then from that tomorrow morning, then we can start with Dr. Young's cross-examination. Unless if there are any objections. If there are none, we're going to adjourn the cross-examination of Dr. Young until tomorrow morning, and we'll come back at 2 o'clock to hear the evidence from a lady from France who I was made to understand that she needs to go to New York either tomorrow or sometime tonight. So I intend taking down her evidence at 2 o'clock.
Chair, we certainly have no objection to it.
Yeah, I'm available tomorrow. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We don't have an objection. We'll also take instructions if it is still going to be necessary for us to cross-examine this witness. But we don't have an objection.
Thanks a lot. Take instructions. Maybe that might help us to reduce the time of cross-examination.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. We'll communicate that to the evidence leader, so we don't think that should delay the adjournment.
Thank you. So, Dr. Young, you understand our difficulty?
Yes, I appreciate that.
So we are going to adjourn your further cross-examination until tomorrow morning, and we'll start tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock.
Sir, may I ask a question? I believe that the witness is actually representing Tali's, and it's certainly possible, especially that I'm here, and of course I would be accused of not using an opportunity while I'm here of cross-examining her, because I'm pretty sure that her evidence could relate to mine. But I've been asking for, well, first of all, this only became known to me this morning, and secondly, I've got no view of a witness statement at this stage.
We are going to leave the evidence in public again. So anybody who wants to attend is welcome to attend. I don't have a copy of a statement as yet. I haven't seen it. But then I'm sure you will be given a copy, and if you intend cross-examining the witness, you can make the application to cross-examine at the right time.
Okay, that's understood.
Then in that case, we are going to adjourn the cross-examination of Dr. Young until tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, and we will come back at 2 o'clock to lead the evidence of another witness. Advocate Speaker, do you want to say something?
Indeed, Chair. Is it possible that we can perhaps start at 9:30 tomorrow? There is some small matter I need to attend to during the course of tomorrow morning. It does appear that of the 3 candidates for cross, one might just fall by the wayside, and that there'd be only cross-examination coming from 2 counsel.
I agree with you. We'll start at 9:30. We'll now adjourn.